Had a very competitive women's race. Kate Avery picked up the individual title. That was about a half hour ago. And Michigan State, the team title here at Terre Haute at the Laverne Gibson cross country course. This is my first visit to this course. I've been wildly impressed. This is an awful neat facility and a great place for these runners to race. They have taken their marks, ready for the gun here in Terre Haute. And we're off. Here are the NCAA Division I cross-country national championships. And immediately, Bob, I think different from what we saw from the women. I'm already seeing some guys sprinting ahead to start this race.
Well, the start of a cross-country race is counterintuitive. You are getting out harder than you probably want to physiologically to handle a 10K race, but you have to be in position. The pack's too big to pick off people. Too many people late in the race.
There is Oregon right in the center of your screen. You'll notice them from those bright yellow uniforms that they are running, and the runner out ahead is Edward Cheserek. Right behind him, he's got a teammate, Eric Jenkins, who has been awful impressive this year as well in his first cross-country season. In fact, Bob, Oregon feels like they may be able to go 1-2 with Cheserek and Jenkins. Couple of very, very impressive runners here in Terre Haute.
And that's really their chance of winning the team title, to have Jenkins and Chesrick 1-2, 1-3, something like that, and hope that some of Colorado's 3, 4, 5 runners falter a little bit. That's their chance. And you just saw Colorado on the left side of the screen there. They're out front in position where they want to be.
It's a long race, though, and certainly we're going to see how this thing pans out. Nobody's jumped out to an early lead. Colorado, as you mentioned, they're led by Blake Thoreau, easily the top runner on that school, and it really has an opportunity, we all expect, to be maybe in the top 5, top 10. And look at that scene, Bob. There is all the fans making their way down to that first corner. They watched them take off on the front straightaway, and now they're going to hustle to their positions to watch these runners take the course.
It's a good workout even when you're out here spectating.
And the nice thing, as we talked about, the temperatures have been pretty nice, 50 degrees, a light breeze. And I've noticed that the breeze has calmed down maybe over the last half hour or so. So the conditions very strong, very good for a lot of these runners. As you see, those fans, some out there hustling a little bit more than others. We won't be too hard on them. We see one with a stroller there. It takes a little bit of time to get out to the positions. But certainly lots of great vantage points here at the Laverne Gibson course. Where would you, if you're a fan, where do you want to watch these runners run on this course?
Really, I think right in the middle. You can go back and forth. There's a loop course, and there's some inside loops, and you can see so much of this just within a couple hundred meters one way or the other, and see them come by and watch the race develop.
Such a neat course that the runners from the NCAA have been coming here for on and off for about a decade here in Terre Haute, Indiana. As we mentioned, the weather conditions have cooperated quite a bit here as the pack makes their way. I see Edward Chesrick about 15 to 20 positions back there, and really no one's separated. That's a large group making their way around this course early on, Bob.
Yeah, they are really relaxed right now. There's nobody pressing at this point trying to push the pace. Almost looks, it's not a jog, but it looks that way at this point. This will pick up at some point. I can't tell you when, but someone's going to say, look, I can't do this anymore. We need to separate.
Are you almost relieved early on when everybody's just kind of feeling each other out and no one's jumping out there? Because I would think if someone jumps out to a 10, 15 length lead early on, mentally that might be able to take you out of your game.
Well, I think it depends on the runner. Some runners might be thinking, oh no, this is too slow. It doesn't play into my strength. I look as fast. You see how bunched up there? They're actually running off the course. That's how slow this pace is right now.
Yeah, dodging some of the weeds that are just on the outskirts of the course here in Terre Haute, Indiana. Saw Edward Chesrick in the middle of that pack. Also saw Northern Arizona's stud Futsum Zinisalasi, who was 4th in nationals a year ago to help Northern Arizona post a second place finish right behind Colorado. Northern Arizona maybe not expected to win the team title, but Zinisalasi's been awfully impressive, and I'm sure a year ago you guys were awfully impressive with how far he was.
Absolutely, and he's a local boy. Yeah. Went to North Central High School in Indianapolis, won a state championship here out on this course when he was in high school, and so coming back to something he's familiar with, backing up a great performance last year with local family and friends and fans supporting him can be an exciting time.
They're in the 4.5-minute mark, and that is a large pack of runners. No one has quite separated, but we have noticed Colorado has quite a few runners up there at the front. Is that you know the coaching staff and kind of the thought process. Do they want to be up front early on and just establish that they can dominate this race?
Well, I think generally yes, but especially on a slow pace, and it's hard. So it's hard to coach this from the side of the course right now. The runners have to instinctually, or at least through the coaching over the season, understand what's going on here, because with a pack like this, if they're too far back and then the pace changes, like I said, they can be 10, 15, 20 spots, places out of place, and before they even know it. So being up front for a team like Colorado makes a lot of sense right now.
Many of these runners have already had an opportunity to race here at the Laverne Gibson course here in Terre Haute, Indiana, and they did in the NCAA pre-nationals. And Bob, Colorado, how impressive is that to score just 35 points in the pre-nationals here a month ago?
It's phenomenal. I mean, 35 against a great Oregon team, against a good Georgetown team. That is just a phenomenal result.
Colorado, it's been an impressive season. Of course, they are the defending national champions. They've won 3 of the last 5, so it's been quite impressive to see just how good they are. And you see a couple of their runners in bib 87 and 94, a couple of the Colorado runners starting to poke their way towards the front of this pack, but no real breakaway runners. A little bit further back, the taller runner in red in Stanford, that's Maxim Koralev. He is the individual who won the West Regional about a week ago, defeating Edward Chesrick. So as Stanford and Colorado and all these schools representing their areas and their universities, certainly a great opportunity. And look at Oregon starting to make their way up. They got a group about 4 or 5 there, Bob, starting to poke their way through on the left side of the course.
They are, and you can see Chesrick right in the middle of the Oregon jerseys there, just biding his time. He's within striking distance. He has his eye on the lead. There goes Colorado's, I can't see who that is right here, but going to the front a little bit. What I was going to say is, looks like the pace is about to quicken, and as I say that, it flattens up again. But there's a real opportunity here, I think, for someone to finish better than they otherwise may have in a normal race, or even unseat Chesrick. And when the pace is this slow, it's very difficult to change pace. It's very difficult to get out of your rhythm and all of a sudden go faster. And if a runner has trained mentally and physically to change the pace, what we call fartlek in running, you have a real opportunity to break some people here in a race like this.
Reached the 7-minute mark here in the national championship race here at the Laverne Gibson course in Terre Haute, Indiana. Should be seeing the first splits come across, but Bob, honestly, those splits aren't going to mean much, are they?
They really won't, the way this race is being run right now and this early.
There's the large pack as we see them make their way around yet another corner. Not many sleeves, not many gloves. I know a year ago, past couple years, we've seen some runners bundled up, but everybody pretty comfortable out here with the conditions of the 50s.
Right. And we just saw Luis Vargas from Ellen. He's undefeated this season. Not from one of the powerhouse known cross-country programs, but he's undefeated. He won his regional last week, and he's right up there at front, mixing it up with everybody else.
It's got to be awfully neat if you're one of these runners from a smaller school. Certainly the Edward Cheserecs of the world, the Patrick Tiernans, they get a lot of attention, but what an opportunity to come here and race against these guys and really prove yourself on a national stage.
Absolutely, and it's just it doesn't matter that what you have on your vest out there. It's one foot in front of the other. Fastest guy to the finish wins.
8 minutes into this event, we also see the runner from Indiana State, John Mascari. He's starting to nose his way up to the front, as well as some of the runners from Oklahoma State. Of course, they're very recognizable in that bright orange. Many of these schools, you can really tell who's running for who with the uniforms that they wear. Oregon, of course, always represented in that bright yellow. But Colorado still leading the pack here with 2 runners. One of those, I'm pretty sure, is Blake Thoreau, who's had a tremendous season. He nearly beat Edward Chesrick at the pre-nats earlier this season. We took a look at those scores, and Colorado certainly dominated that event, but he won the early season Rocky Mountain Shootout, was 4th, the top Colorado runner at the Pac-12 Nationals, which the Buffaloes won as well. So this pack, Bob, 9 minutes in, I'm surprised that no one has jumped out there and said, okay, enough is enough, I need to lead.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised too, except it's coming. Call another 4 or 5 minutes, most likely you'll start to see this stretch out, in my opinion. But so far everyone seems to be content with where they are. I think we might have a little push on the left side of the screen there. Can't tell who that is, but you can also tell by and I said this earlier, if it's flat across the front or now it's starting to skinny up or flatten out a little bit, string out a little bit, then you know the pace is changing.
It's certainly not a sprint here in Terre Haute. It's all about pacing, and we're starting to see a couple of the runners break away as we reach the 10-minute mark. You're starting to see those 3,000-meter splits, but again, everything just so tight, and those positions changing really every second, just about around every corner, so it's hard to really call those accurate because they certainly are changing quite a bit. Bob, certainly we talk about the mental aspect. Physically, though, 10Ks, how often are these guys running 10K when it comes to practicing year in, year out, and through the months leading up to this event?
Well, they're only running probably 2, maybe 3 races in the season, in the cross-country season, at that distance. Normally it's shorter, like 8 kilometers. But they're training relatively high volume, and so the distance itself is not a big factor. It's the kind of more the physiological when you're running at this pace, whether your body's ready to go for it or not. Now, I think the distance is going to be less of a factor today because the start's been so slow.
Let's take a look at those team splits after 3,000 meters here at the Laverne Gibson Championship course. Of course, early on, Colorado looking pretty good, and Bob, we saw with a couple runners up front, if they can keep it that way, they'll be in a good position to claim this race.
Right, and no surprises right there. Even Syracuse down in 8th. I mean, they're seconds out of first, really, when the pack is that packed together. So, but everyone's where they need to be at this point.
If you're towards the back, when do you panic when there's a pack this big? Because I walked this course just like you did. There's some parts where if you're in the back of the pack, there's not a lot of way you can maneuver your way to the front.
That's right. I mean, my coach, Sam Bell at Indiana, always used to tell us, once you get to a mile or into the race, you're probably only going to finish 10 or 15 spots from where you are, either forward or backwards. And so if you're in 100th right now and you want to be 20th, probably unlikely. The traffic, you can't get through the traffic, even if you have the fitness to get there.
3 runners have broken away from the rest of the pack, representing Auburn and Lamar, and another runner there in 3rd, making their way around this corner. Of course, Colorado, the top team after the splits, and a couple of the runners up front, just pure individuals. And Bob, certainly they've got an opportunity to prove themselves on a national stage. When you're out there by yourself, and you don't have any other team to worry about, you're just strictly running for yourself, is there a little extra pressure taken off your back?
Probably, yeah. I think when you're running on a team and your team has expectations of doing well, you have the pressure of, I can't let 5 people go by me here because that might affect my team and my team score. But when you're an individual, you can run free and worry about yourself.
That's Ty McCormick from Auburn University, who's found his way to the front of this pack. Second right behind him was Lamar's runner. That was Sam Stabler. So those two out front early on. It'll be a little bit easier to identify some of these runners once we start getting some further splits because that pack was just so filled. We talked about Edward Cheserek at the beginning of this show. He's a guy that likes to get out front and dominate. Surprised that we haven't seen him really make a move and flex a little muscle early on?
Not yet. We're not halfway yet, and he knows there's a lot of talent in this field. And sometimes front running can be to an advantage if you're stronger than everyone else, but it also can be a disadvantage if really talented runners just suck off your drafting, as you said in race car lingo. It can be a disadvantage. So sometimes you want to wait and pick your time strategically of when you're going to go to the front and push.
Yeah, you can pick out Edward Cheserek. He's in the middle of that pack right there. He's a smaller guy. He's not very tall, but boy, it's so impressive. You talked about what he's done in his career. Easily one of the most accomplished runners, and he's only a sophomore now.
Right.
That's got to be awfully scary for a lot of these other runners. As you see him there on the right of your screen, bib 451 for Oregon. to know a guy's only a sophomore, and if you're an underclassman, I got to compete against this guy for the next 2 or 3 years. That's pretty daunting.
It is. You worry about yourself, but he has all the tools, and that's why I think he does not have to go to the lead because he has such great finishing speed. If he wants to go to the lead, he can. He has that kind of ability. There's on the very far right of your screen, you can barely see him in the hat from UTEP, is Anthony Rotich, and he is probably one guy in the field who has similar finishing speed as Chesrick. He's the two-time NCAA steeplechase champion. He won the indoor mile in the NCAA last year and has that kind of pedigree as well. So, but you have so many options when you're Edward Chesrick. You can run this race so many different ways and still win.
And Rotich, with a lot of experience, certainly knows his way around this Terre Haute course, the Laverne Gibson Championship course. As we've reached 15 minutes into this 10K run, those 3 or 4 that had stretched away from the pack, well, they've backed up to the pack, and the top contenders starting to reel them in. There's Edward Chesarek in the bright yellow to your left of your screen, bib 667 for Villanova. That's Patrick Tiernan from Toowoomba, Australia. He's had an impressive season. He's only a sophomore as well, so I mean, for the fans of collegiate running, the idea that they're going to get to watch Patrick Tiernan and King Edward Chesarek for the next couple years, that's pretty exciting.
It is. A lot of young talent, and I think some great races, not only this year, but for years to come, as you just said.
There's the 5,000-meter splits halfway through this event here in Terre Haute. Of course, still a large pack, so a lot of positions to be gained. We're on the front straightaway portion of this course. I'm surprised that we haven't seen things widen out and spread out, because I would think these guys are probably getting tired of running heel and toe with runners right in front of them and then right there on their heels.
Yeah, and 15:30 through 5K is not quick. It's not jogging, but it's 31 minutes. Obviously, if you double that up for your 10K time, and I think they're playing right into Edward Chesrick's hands. The only way, in my opinion, that an athlete has an opportunity to try to beat Chesrick today is to run away from him before the finishing straightaway.
You think Chesarek has that good of a kick speed at the end that when it's time to turn it on, he can really make his way to the front?
I do.
Let's take a look at those team splits, and Oregon has started to make their way towards the front. They have the top score right now at just 97 points. But, Bob, it's so tight. Look at that, 12 points separating the top 3, and all West Coast schools, all representing the Pac-12.
Yeah. It's all that tells us is that most of the favorite teams are up where they need to be right now, but we don't know. We can't tell. We think Oregon or Colorado has an advantage for the team title at this point.
What is it about running out on the West Coast? Because right now it seems like with Oregon, and Colorado's not the West Coast, but they've got a real storied tradition and program. Stanford's been awfully good. What is it about running out there that gets these guys ready? And programs have been so good.
Yeah, I just think it's cyclical, to be honest with you. I mean, Wisconsin's a storied program, and you've got programs like Villanova and Providence over the years from all over the country, and just right now it happens to be West Coast heavy.
3 Oregon runners up front there. Awfully impressive to see early on. Patrick Tiernan for Villanova. Here's a good look at all the runners making their way past. Just about everybody still has a good shot to make their way to the front of this field, as that pack has really not separated much. And Bob, it's awfully interesting to see some of these runners towards the back. Everybody has a different strategy. What was yours? I mean, did you like to pace yourself early? Did you pride yourself on maybe how you could finish? Or were you one of those guys that like to get out front and lead?
It depended. The first year I won an NCAA championship, I was out kicking someone in the final straightaway and never let a step until the final few steps of the race. My senior year, I took the lead with about 3 kilometers to go and was there the whole time. So it just depends on who's in the race, who you think will be your biggest competitor, and what their strengths and weaknesses are, and trying to match them up to your strengths and weaknesses.
Nearing the 19-minute mark here. Of course, this is a 10K race here at the Laverne Gibson Championship course. Edward Chesarek, our defending champion, he won a year ago, upsetting Kennedy Kathuka, and hey, there are a lot of talented runners in this race, and we saw Edward Chesarek finally go down in the West Regional to Maxim Koralev from Stanford. Right now, it looks like there's 20, 30 runners right now that think that they have a chance to upset Edward Chesarek. How tough is that coming into an event where everyone labels one guy as the favorite? Is that got to be awfully tough for Edward, but certainly tough for the rest of these runners as they want an opportunity to knock him off?
Yeah, and I think that the longer the pace stays here and does not get faster, the more confidence everyone it builds more confidence that maybe they can make a run to win this title and beat Edward Chesrick today, even though that's all they've heard about leading up to this is how he's dominant, he's the favorite to win, and he is. He's earned that right. But the longer that this pack stays together, the longer that runners that have great talent feel good about where they are and don't get under pressure, the more confidence they have, and then I think it's more of a roll of the dice for the finish.
Nick Yeoman and Bob Kennedy here in Terre Haute for the NCAA Division I Cross Country National Championships. And Bob, this race is a stark contrast from what we saw about an hour ago in the women's race where Kate Avery, I mean, she picked him up and laid him down and had no problem running away with that race. Why was that one so much different than the one we're seeing right now?
It's a great question. Sometimes personality of a race kind of just happens organically at the start of the race. You don't really know unless someone has a very specific strategy like Kate Avery seemed to have, where I am going to take it and I'm going to go from this point of the race and I'm going to run for home. I'm not sure at this point that anyone in this field has as dramatic of a strategy of that. Cheserek's probably strategy is I'm going to feel it out for 7 kilometers and I'm going to see what I need to do at that point. Either I'll go and try to run away with it, or someone's really pressing the pace, and so I'm going to sit on the shoulder and try to outkick them. But no one, what can happen too, and it's hard to know from watching this, but if you're so keyed off one runner, everyone else is following that runner. Even if, so Chesrick is not technically in the lead right now, but they are all aware of exactly where he is. And so they don't want to be his rabbit. They don't want to be his pacemaker. And so all of a sudden the whole race slows down. That can happen too. And I'm trying to think, which team does this favor, this kind of pace? Is it Colorado's such a deep, strong team? They're not maximizing that on a slow pace. You know, is Villanova, a school like Villanova that is more, I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily track-oriented, but kind of faster, shorter 5K guys, less 10K guys. Is it played into their favor to have a slower pace like this?
You see the runners making their way uphill. One of the runners from Cal, Chris Walden, he's representing his school alone. The only runner from Cal, saw him up front. You mentioned Edward Chesrick and how sometimes everyone can kind of play their race off of what he is doing. Is that still the case, though, despite the fact that he hasn't been up front? Because I would think that if he's up front, yeah, everyone is behind him following that pace. But he's been mid-pack for most of this race. Not mid-pack, but about 5th, 6th, 7th on back.
Right, but all the favorites, Koralev and Tiernan and Futsum and Rotich, they all know where he is. I can tell you that. They all know where he is, and they have their eye on him. And frankly, if you think you have a shot, if you're Koralev or Tiernan and you think you have a shot, you want to know where he is, because as soon as he moves, you want to be on his shoulder. You can't let a 10-meter gap happen or a 15-meter gap happen. It can happen quickly. And so you have to be aware of where your competitors are. You have to be aware of when they move. There's Futsum number 406 from Northern Arizona, the Indiana native, coming up to the front of the pack on the left side.
And there's Blake Thoreau for Colorado, number 93, making his way on the right side of the track. Also, Stanford's Joe Rosa. He's in the red there. He had sunglasses on a minute ago. The red head, he popped him up on top of his head, but he sat out all of last season with injuries. So for some of these, and he's not the only one. I'm sure there's many runners that weren't able to make it to nationals a year ago. The opportunity to finally get on the stage, to finally be here, that's got to be awfully exhilarating, and something some of these runners I know from the upperclassmen have been working on really their entire collegiate careers.
Absolutely, and sometimes it's such a fine line with illness or little injuries that keep you from training full capacity or keep you off the starting line. And to just stand and be in the race competing is such a great feeling for some of these athletes, because there's so much that goes into it over not only the season but for years and years and years.
I loved how you put it. Sometimes it happens organically in this race. For 24 minutes in, we still have a front pack there of about 20, 30, 40 runners. We see a couple of the Oregon teammates starting to surge ahead, and there is Edward Cheserek right now in second, running toe-to-toe with the leaders. Right behind him, Eric Jenkins, who's awfully impressive as well. And Bob, those two talked about publicly that they wanted to come here to Terre Haute, and they wanted to go 1-2 because that's something that just doesn't happen very often for a school to have two runners that good. Certainly there's depth like Colorado has, but to have a couple guys that have a chance to win a title is awfully impressive.
Right, and the last time I can remember, and I'm sure there are other examples, but Iowa State back when I was running had John Nuttall and Jonah Koech who finished a great 1-2 punch, and it's just such a great advantage for your team to have two front runners, let alone one front runner. The pace is definitely quickening right now. You can see it stringing out a little bit, people starting to look around a little bit more. Almost got rammed into the fence there. That would hurt a little bit. But yeah, you can see the pace quickening, and I think we're going to see some action here. And here goes Chesrick to the lead. Yeah,
Chesarek, certainly, as you mentioned, he dodged that near miss with the fence there, and he has slipped around into the lead. And you can, I mean, I'm not a running expert, but visually, Bob, you can see those guys are really starting to push harder. And Chesarek in Biv 451 for Oregon starting to push out front.
Yeah, I think he really wants to run away from here. He's not trying to just go to the lead and test. He wants to make his break for the line here and get away and be in front. And he's starting to gap people. And what you can watch is, as he looks back, which is interesting, he hasn't changed much except his cadence. So now he's going quicker. He's not increased his stride length at all. He's just picking him up and putting him down at a more rapid rate than he was.
Such an impressive career, and as we talked about, he's only a sophomore. He's the NCAA 10,000-meter outdoor champion, the NCAA 5,000-meter indoor champion, the 3,000-meter indoor champion. Of course, picked up the cross-country title a year ago. Is there anything this guy can't do? I mean, it's so impressive how good he is as only a sophomore.
He looks very much in control, and you can almost guess that just by watching this. Pretty much the strategy was, look, at 8 kilometers, if you're still in a pack, that's where you're going to go and make your move, because that's almost exactly what happened. And he looks so much in control, so smooth right now. There's still, probably 1,500 meters left in the race, but and lots of things can happen, but he's putting such a big gap on right now. It's his race to win.
And to your credit, partner, you called it. You said you thought that maybe it was kind of playing into his hands. And right about at the 8,000-meter split, as we saw, Edward Chesrick has certainly turned it on. Let's take a look at those team scores. Colorado still out front, but oh so close, with Stanford just 6 points back. Bob, right now, though, and with 8,000 meters, this is really when it's starting that these numbers are solidified, mean a little bit more than what we saw at 2,000 or 4,000, looking like a two-team race.
It is looking. Syracuse is not out of it yet, but yes, Colorado and Stanford, and they've, Colorado's beat Stanford earlier this year at the Pac-12. Sorry, at the regional, I believe. Anyway. You're right. The last 2 kilometers, positions 3, 4, and 5. Team runners 3, 4, and 5 will win this race for whichever team ends up ahead.
Yeah, that's so impressive because so many of these programs have top runners, and that's where it's won. It's those 3rd, 4th, and 5th runners. They've got to do their job as well. They're not necessarily going for top 10s, top 15s. If you can slip in the top 60, top 70, a lot of times that'll win you an event.
Right, and if you look here, you've got Jenkins in Colorado up front, foots him in 4th place right now. And if you saw the screenshot right behind that, Colorado had 3 or 4 runners in that next pack.
Yeah, Colorado was a school I think a lot of experts thought that they could put maybe 5 in the top 20 because they've been that good this season. So Colorado certainly starting to make their run for a team title here in Terre Haute. Up front, though, it is still Edward Cheserek. He was born in Kenya, moved to the United States in 2010, attended St. Benedict's Prep School in Newark, New Jersey, and really one of the most highly recruited runners coming out of prep school. I mean, everybody really wanted this guy in their uniform.
Yeah, and he was a dominant high school runner, running great times, winning national high school championships with ease. And he keeps looking back, and And that's not, as he goes around a turn, that's not a terrible thing. He just wants to make sure he doesn't get surprised as he finishes up, crosses the start line. He's in the final straightaway now. And again, he looks good. You can tell by his cadence. He's just got a great cadence, just churning those legs over as he gets to the finish line. And here comes his teammate for this possible 1-2 finish that they were talking about.
Boy, they said they wanted to do it, and here's Eric Jenkins surging ahead. Surely that Edward Chesrick just took a peek back. He saw that. That's got to make him awfully happy. Futsum Zinisalasi for Northern Arizona. He was 4th a year ago. He's trying to run down Jenkins for 2nd, but up front it is all Cesarec. He's taking a peek back, multiple peeks. He knows he has this in bib 451. Down the stretch they come here. We're going to crown some national champions. Edward Chesrick, King Ches, he won it a year ago, and he is well on his way to doing it back to back. And maybe, just maybe, it's good enough for Oregon to go 1-2 with Eric Jenkins right on his heel. Now, Futsum Zinisalasi, he has moved into 2nd, but here comes King Ches. Edward Chesrick, for the 2nd straight year, is your NCAA Division I national champion. And Bob, it looks like Jenkins is going to edge him out. An impressive 1-2 finish for Oregon.
That is very exciting. You rarely see that. First of all, you rarely see the back-to-back championship, and to go 1-2 from one school is impressive. And there's 3 Colorado runners right across the line, just like that.
So Colorado, with their talented runners, it looks like they put at least 3 in the top 15. But wow, the story is the Oregon dynamic duo. Eric Jenkins comes home 2nd, and King Ches, Edward Chesrick, for the 2nd straight year, he defends his national championship crown. He's won it his freshman year. He's won it his sophomore year. That's an awfully scary thought to see if he can maybe come back and do it again. As we see the rest of these runners come across the line, though, you saw it right away. Colorado with 3 runners. The depth for this program is just so impressive, Bob.
It is impressive, and we'll find out where their 4th and 5th were. But, I mean, look at these finishes here. I mean, every place counts, whether your team is 4th or 5th or 8th or 9th. And so I love the fight all the way to the line from every one of these guys.
There's your top 8 across the line. Edward Chesrick and Eric Jenkins, 1-2 for the Oregon Ducks. The local favorite, as you mentioned earlier, Futsum Zinisalasi, who went to school at Indianapolis North Central, had a lot of fans in attendance. He represents Northern Arizona very well with a 3rd place finish. Maxim Koralev, who's been kind of inconsistent, follows up that strong win in the D1 West Regional. He comes home 4th. There's your first Colorado runner at Amar Musa in 5th. Stanley Kabeni, who was up front for a majority of the race, slipped back to 6th. Another Colorado runner in Ben Sorrell in 7th. And then there's John Mascari. He's from right here in Terre Haute, Indiana. A lot of people thought that maybe he could compete for a top 10 and to come home 8th, making the home fans here in Terre Haute awfully proud. Very impressive.
That is impressive. Very exciting. Congratulations to John.
Just saw Patrick Tiernan. He slipped back to 18th. A little surprised by that we didn't see him up there. The Villanova runner was really leading the pack, was up there for a majority of the first 8,000 to 6,000 meters, but he slipped back outside of the top 15. All the runners now making their way across the finish line. But Bob, Edward Chesrick has done it again, and certainly it wasn't maybe as, I mean, last year he upsetted Kennedy Kathuka, and that was the storyline. Today, though, certainly when he wanted to put the throttle down and jump into the lead, it was his race to win.
He was in complete control, and as I said earlier, no one, for whatever reason, either couldn't or decided not to put him under any kind of pressure. And if you have a chance of beating an athlete like Edward Chesrick, you've got to put them under pressure early, and he basically was able to do whatever he wanted to do in this race, and he did today.
And what can we say about Eric Jenkins, the top American runner? I mean, he comes home in 2nd. That's what they wanted to do, 1-2. I mean, how much has it paid off for him practicing and running, I'm sure, every day with Edward Chesrick? For these guys to come home 1-2, it's just incredible.
It's fun. And, you know, I was on a high school team where I was a state runner-up in Ohio. My teammate was a state champion that same year. And it was a bit of a surprise, but it's you work so hard together the whole year to have that result. It's the best possible result you could wish for.
Well, we talked about that early on the pace was slow, but none of us are going to call these runners slow because you could see the agony on some of these runners' faces. The weather conditions cooperated in the mid-50s, but these guys were just pushing so hard at the end because every position was certainly up for grabs with how tight the pack was for the majority of the race.
Right, and sometimes when the race starts slower, it's actually harder. It's harder to change pace, and now you're running faster over the last 5 kilometers than you would if the pace was fast early in the race.
How long did it take you, Bob, after, say, a 10K until you were starting to feel normal and ready to walk around after a race like this?
Well, define normal, but yeah, you know, it's an all-day recovery for me it was anyway. I mean, not that I wasn't able to walk or anything, but to feel not fatigued and not feel the fatigue in your muscles is at least a full day, if not longer.
It hurts, but all these runners have plenty to be proud of just to make it to this stage. The NCAA Nationals is just so incredible. These are the best collegiate runners that the country has to offer, and certainly as all of them make their way across the finish line, I want to send our congratulations to everyone who made their way out to Terre Haute for this event. This has been a lot of fun for me, a lot of fun for you, and maybe not so fun for that young man, but certainly everyone will hold their head high pretty after all these runners have recovered.